Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest webinar from Backing Brentwood Business. My name's Colin Barber. I'm Chairman of Brentwood Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to be with you this morning and present the latest in our webinar brought to help you to cope with the problems encountered during the coronavirus. This webinar is brought to you jointly by Brentwood Chamber of Commerce, Brentwood Business Partnership, and Brentwood Borough Council. It's the latest in a series of webinars which we've been promoting twice a week for you, and we'd like to remind you that if you haven't seen any of the webinars up to now, they are available on YouTube on the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce website for you to view. Today's webinar is entitled Bounce Back Marketing, which is quite a catchy word. And obviously at the moment, we've sort of got through the first phase of the coronavirus. We're now beginning to think about how we can get our business up and running, or get our business back up to peak performance, ready for when hopefully the bounce back will happen. And certainly history does show us, although we may not have a history of coronavirus, we do have history of various other peaks and troughs in the business world over many years. And history does show us that normally a trough like we're in at the moment is followed by an inevitable bounce back. And obviously the key to you is to ensure that you and your business benefit from that bounce back as much as possible. It may well be that you're bouncing back in a different way from the way you were performing before, but that's the key area to focus your attention at the moment, to ensure that when you do bounce back, you're able to take full advantage of the potential upswing in the economy. So today's webinar is brought to us by Jill Willis from an agency called Attract and Engage, a very experienced marketing agency, and we'll be hearing from Jill very shortly. Just first of all, a couple of things to mention to you. First of all, whilst there is a presentation, there is also an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. So on your screen, probably at the bottom or somewhere on your screen, you should find various options available, one of which is Q&A. So if you've got any questions which you'd like to ask Jill, if you've got a question already, then do feel free to submit it. But if you have a question during the webinar, just type it in under Q&A, and we'll be happy to, or Jill will be happy to answer your questions at the end of the webinar. I'll be putting your questions to Jill on your behalf. There's also a chat button if you've got any messages you want to send to me or to Jill during the presentation, and then do hit the chat button. But as I say, for any questions you've got, which is the most important one, then do hit the Q&A button. This webinar is being recorded, and it will again be uploaded to the YouTube channel, the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel. We'll be sending out details. It should hopefully be uploaded later today, and we'll send out details of how to find the YouTube webinar. But quite simply, if you go to the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce channel on YouTube, then you can find all the webinars which are there already. And as I say, this one should be uploaded either later on today or certainly by tomorrow. So really, without further ado, it's my time now to introduce you to our presenter today, Jill. Are you with us, Jill? Would you like to just unmute and turn your video on?
Hello.
Good morning, Jill. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes. Good. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Oh, welcome. You're very welcome. And we're interested in hearing what you've got to tell us about bounce back marketing, and obviously how that's going to help our companies today. But first of all, Jill, just perhaps you could tell us a little bit about Attract and Engage, and about yourself and what you do in the normal environment in terms of marketing.
Yeah, in the normal environment. So yeah, we joined Brentwood Chambers, I suppose, a couple of months before lockdown. So I personally came along to one breakfast meeting and met a room full at Mary Green Manor and kind of introduced myself. And then that was it. We were all whisked away. So a few people will have heard that kind of 60-second intro already. But we are a growth marketing agency based in Billericay. Personally, I've got about 20 years experience either as senior marketing director or communications director. So it's a nice hybrid combination of PR and marketing. And over the last 10 years, we've built a business from me being a freelancer and supporting local business owners through to an agency where we have now a really good mix of different business owners. Usually businesses are already established and scaling. They might have a very small management team in place. They haven't quite got to the point where they're having a marketing director join them in-house, but they need that kind of strategic guidance and then the operational to support to deliver campaigns across a whole range of different channels: online, offline, advertising, print, digital, the whole works. So that's the support that we give to businesses. And it's meant really that the last 8 weeks we've just seemed to have like had a phone glued to our ear, just giving lots of advice to help people adapt and change really quickly, because that's what it's been all about. Every week it's been, you know, a new question and a new shift.
So you're one of the businesses which actually has been quite busy during the current crisis then?
Yeah, I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, I think for all businesses there's been a kind of a reaction, and the way you react to a crisis. Some businesses are just kind of closed off and just thought, you know, cash flow, let's just protect it, let's batten down the hatches and stop. So of course we've had clients that have slowed things right back, but other businesses are looking to the future and know that now is not the time to be silent. Now is the time to actually start putting yourself out there more, improving yourselves. So it's a combination, but yeah, we're very busy. See, I do feel like I'm talking a lot, getting a sore throat.
Yeah. And I understand you're homeschooling a couple of children as well at the same time.
Yeah. Jake and Isabel downstairs, very busy. So it's, the nice thing, I suppose, for me, I suppose the silver lining almost, perhaps for a lot of women, is that, you know, I work in the business with my husband, Rich, who I think a few people have met already as well at another event. So we are literally 50-50, and we're splitting the week down the middle, taking equal parental teacher responsibilities and equal business running responsibilities. So that's actually been quite nice. And I think going back, that'll be a nice learning. I think we were always very good, but I think we'll be even better at that. So I think that's a good thing.
Oh, you sound very organised.
Trying.
So, Jill, so what about your background? How did you come to become involved in marketing? Have you always been working in marketing, or what's your background?
Well, I started off as a junior reporter on an IT newspaper. So I kind of I thought I wanted to be a journalist, and that's where I began. Loved it for the first couple of years, but then was kind of wooed, as lots of junior reporters and editorial staff are, into public relations. So I joined a PR agency in London that specialised, at the time, it was the time of the dot-com bubble and tech and incubators, and I joined an agency, and we had clients like Hewlett-Packard and Mitel networks. And so I was doing public relations for those clients, coming up with the stories, writing the press releases, working with the journalists to make sure that they're reported on. And really my career went from there. I worked at a number of agencies, all were specialising in tech, to the point where I went in-house at the trade association for the IT and telecommunications industry as the comms director there. Really top level stuff to do with recycling and the industry moving forward and being profitable and of value to the UK. That was great. And then a little hiatus almost, met Rich, and we decided, because he was in advertising doing similar things but in the advertising space, we decided we wanted a break, started a cafe business in Romford called Taste. And then over the course of about 6 years, we grew that business, won quite a few awards, managed to develop a franchise model, had a cafe open in Cardiff with a franchise owner, had a cafe open in Southport near Liverpool with a franchise owner. Got to 2008, recession was happening. We had Jake, who was tiny, and then Isabel very quickly after. And we just kind of felt like, you know what, we've kind of perhaps reached the end of this line. Let's sell the business as a going concern, and let's perhaps go back to what we were doing before but do that for ourselves and help business owners with that marketing comms knowledge we've got, but also the fact we've owned a business ourselves, we've grown it, we've done it, we've been through it. And I think that actually has been really valuable, and I draw on that all the time.
Wonderful. And I don't quite know how it's happened in modern technology, but I can see your family sitting watching you right now on this video. So let's just see if we can bring it up. Give us a wave. Yeah, so everyone can see you now. I can't hear you, but we can see you. So.
Oh dear.
Right, so Jill, I understand you've got a presentation for us.
Yes.
So I'll hand over to you to do the presentation. Just to remind the viewers, if you've got any questions of any nature for Jill, they just type them in and we'll put them to Jill at the end of the presentation. So over to you, Jill.
Right, let's share my screen with you now. So bounce back better. So the idea of this presentation really is because, as I was just saying in that introduction, I've been talking to lots and lots of business owners recently, and across a wide range of sectors. And there are those business owners who have kind of got very scared and kind of pulled back and stopped investment. But there's also been those who are really needing a sanity check, because now everything seems like they need to be ramping back up. They need to be getting themselves ready, but where to start? And I think for lots of business owners, they either kind of suffer from that shiny object syndrome, where they're jumping from one marketing tactic to another. They've got a great idea, or they've spoken to someone, and that seems like the focus, the direction to go in. Or they're perhaps feeling really overwhelmed at the scale of marketing and just don't know where to start. Okay, so when I was thinking about what would be best and what would be most helpful for the delegates on the webinar, I wanted to think about the 3 key questions that we've been addressing most frequently over the last few weeks. And they come up time and time again. So that is reputation and a higher purpose, and whether you're building enough trust right now. 2 is how to say and do the right things at the right time. And this is very much about understanding the sales funnel, investing at the right time and with the right messages to achieve sales. And then thirdly, explore the difference of brand versus performance investment, and give some helpful tips to help you decide what the right balance is for you. Now, what I wanted to try and do here today is make this as interactive as possible. So as Colin said, there's the chat button, so fire questions as you go, and Colin will perhaps interrupt if he thinks there's any really pertinent ones, or we can save it to the end. I also suggest you have a pen and a paper at the ready, because as we go through with these 3 key points, I'm going to be asking you to jot things down to do with your business and use what we're talking about in the webinar as a starting point for some planning as you go away. Reputation. So I think what should you be doing really is a big question that we're asked most frequently. What's the thing that you should be focusing on first and foremost? Now, it's definitely building your reputation. And why is this? That's because a favourable brand reputation means that people not only trust your business, but vitally, they're important, they're comfortable spending what little they have with you. Now, just rewind for a moment here. Your reputation, your brand reputation is about so much more than your logo and your colour scheme. Your brand reputation is really how customers feel about doing business with you. It's about culture, it's about actions, and it's about how you demonstrate that you can be trusted. So there's these 2 pictures here. Obviously, the guy on the left, who you may or may not know, is the owner of Wetherspoons. Now, I've pulled this example up because JD Wetherspoons as a business has kind of failed pretty miserably when it comes to reputation, and they're a really good example to draw upon. Early doors, they were all up front in the press, trying to evoke a bulldog spirit, claiming that pubs should stay open as usual because they were the heart of the community, that had a huge part to play in mental health support for the community, etc. But very quickly, they were then telling staff to get jobs in supermarkets and refusing to pay suppliers. So all this did was demolish their reputation, and really it proved that the first stance was not actually about community at all. It was all about money. So their reputation is completely diminished because they haven't proven that they can be trusted. Ryanair's the same. Now, of course, we all, I'm sure, have a fairly poor trust level in Ryanair, but they've compounded that further by dragging their feet over refunds for customers. All that's done is damaged our reputation. Joe Wicks, on the other hand, and other companies like him, Brewdog, the craft beer companies, turned to kind of producing hand sanitizer. Admiral Insurance, fantastic example. They've stated their intention to not benefit from lockdown. They've not just stated the intention, they've backed that up by refunding stay-at-home car and van customer policies. They've demonstrated it. And then, of course, Joe Wicks, who's like, the nation's PE teacher, and quite frankly, has won our hearts forever. And I'm sure that parents around the country will do whatever and spend whatever forever with Joe Wicks for what he's done. So really, it's no different for small local businesses. Just like the big brands, you're going to have to focus on reputation to emerge stronger. And that's how you'll differentiate yourself. You'll have a higher purpose, a mission, and you'll make sure that every action you take has gone through your reputation filter first. From reopening through to launching a new service that might be relevant right now, to the treatment of your staff. Every single word you publish, every customer service interaction you take has to build reputation. So what I'd like you to do is grab your pen and fill in these blanks on your piece of paper. So with your business in mind, I'd like you to write down, I help people or businesses, if you're a B2B firm, I help people or businesses to something, by something, resulting in something. So I'm going to give you a few moments just to write down this sentence for yourself. So I help people or businesses to something, by something, resulting in something. Okay, so hopefully you'll have jotted down your sentence. Now you might want to work on this a bit more afterwards, but you'll have got the bare bones. Now, vitally, with reputation, it's about proving it. You can't just say it, you have to actually demonstrate it. So now I'd like you to list 3 ways that you can demonstrate how you help and who you help and what it results in this socially distant world. This could be to do with how you treat your team. This could be to do with how you're supporting your community. Jot down 3 things. Mm-hmm. So the idea is here that you are really considering how you can demonstrate that your business truly understands the needs and preference of its customers, and that you think about it as being on their side. You're putting their needs before the bottom line. Because ultimately with reputation, it's about demonstrating a better level of intuition than your competitors, because that's how you're going to win in the long run. Okay, so we'll move on to the next big question that we asked about. So we've explored reputation as the #1 thing you need to focus on right now. And hopefully you'll now have a clearer idea of how to ensure your brand is strong and that it shines through. Now, the second most commonly asked question that we get from business owners is, how can we attract more customers? So again, let's have your pen and papers at the ready as we talk about the purchase cycle. Now, this is something that you perhaps haven't looked at before, but you will be aware of it because you're all consumers. So looking at this slide, I'd like you to take your pen and draw a sideways oval. And then at the bottom, I'd like you to write passive. At the left, I'd like you to write trigger. At the top, I'd like you to write active. And at the right, I'd like you to write passive. Now, as we talk around this cycle, I'd like you to think about your offering and your audience. And the purpose really here is that you start to drop your marketing ideas in as placeholders. It's a really interesting exercise, and I hope that it kind of will illuminate some gaps, some opportunities for you to exploit that you can take away and build on after the webinar. So let's talk through. So this is the wheel. Everybody sits, all of us as consumers, whether it's a consumer focusing B2C or a B2B consumer, sit in the passive stage down at the bottom. You're not actively considering a purchase. You're happy where you are. Thank you very much. Now, let's imagine you're buying a car. You sit there most of the time. Perhaps you only, you replace your car maybe every 5 years. Most of the time you're down at the bottom. Then something happens, a trigger, which is a need or a want, and that's going to move you from the passive stage. Now, with a car, obviously it could be that you have a child, need a bigger boot to fit a pram, whatever. The trigger happens and you move around into the active research stage. And that's where consumers are actively researching, considering. They're really looking at those, asking those the 5 big questions around pricing, around problems. They're looking at comparisons. They're looking at reviews, and they're really trying to understand who is best in class. And then they move around to purchase. And that's where a purchase decision is made, and they then fall back into the passive stage. Every single consumer for your business, for any kind of business, fits into this purchase cycle. Now, the key is to make sure that you are filling the funnel down the bottom in that passive stage with as many prospective buyers as possible. This is about the brand awareness message, concentrating on the reputational marketing that we've just been talking about. And you need to understand where your audience lives at this passive stage, whether that's online, whether that's physical. Think about your target audience, your ideal customer. Where are they when they're passive? What are they doing? And what do they need to know about you to trust you? Moving around to the trigger and beyond trigger. Now, again, you've got your audience. You should know, I would expect from the business that you've been doing to date, what the key triggers are. What is it that engages a customer, makes them think they need to start researching the service or the product that you offer? And what's key here now as well is that you think about whether or not you can actually create a trigger. So again, as we move around, start brain dumping down for your customer, your audience, ideas around passive and around trigger. Then we move up to the active research stage. Now, this is where your customers, your prospective customers, whether B2B, B2C, are Googling, and they're Googling those most common search terms. Now, actually cost, I know it's really annoying because you don't want to be competing on cost ever, but cost is the most frequently asked question, and it's what comes back time and time again. Now, we talk to businesses about this, and oftentimes they'll say, oh, but we don't want to share our costs. Certainly in the B2B service space, we don't want to share our costs, and we don't need to because, you know, every solution is different. Our prices vary. If we show customers what we charge, then we might frighten customers away. But, you know, being transparent and honest and sharing, you know, a good idea of costs with a backup story of value is really, really important. That's what your customers are looking for. And if they don't find it when they hit your website, they're not likely to spend the next 5 minutes trying to find it. What they're likely to do is actually go somewhere else, to somewhere that is sharing an idea of cost. So there's no point hiding from it. So for you, thinking about the most frequently asked questions that your customers would be Googling around your product or service, they're going to be reaching out through Facebook community groups, perhaps researching via Instagram hashtags. They're comparing, they're looking at reviews, they're digging around on social feeds. That's the active research stage. And then the performance-based tactics around the other side. So this is where they've thought about what they want, they've looked at some competitors, and you now need to help push them along very gently. They're engaged. Let's use things like introductory offers, perhaps free delivery, free consultation to move them into the purchase phase. Now, for every business is different, but the idea really is to use this wheel to jot down what your customers are doing and what your customers need at every single stage, because that will really help you to plan effectively and to make sure that you're really dropping your ideas in where you see you have the strength, and then you're highlighting where you have the weakness. And the aim is to have a really solid balance of activities all the way around the wheel at every single stage, because that's how you're going to best create and fill the funnel. Just a final point on this slide as well on the purchase cycle. Remember, when a customer makes a purchase, they're then back in the wheel, but you now own that relationship if they've purchased from you before. So you can track that purchase cycle all the way round. So if you know that you're selling a product which becomes out of date, or that where they'll need a refill within a certain length of time, that should be giving you your wheel for your customer relationship management. You should be thinking about emailing a customer, phoning a customer at the point that you've identified in your wheel where they may be back in the trigger, they may be back in the active research stage, and you can drive that. And actually, that is the first place to look when you're thinking about increasing revenue. It's your existing customer base, tracking this purchase cycle on them, and then reaching out and trying to increase sales that way. They're the low-hanging fruit, and they're already fans, or they should be. Okay, so if we move on to the investment aim. So again, the third question is really, really common ultimately, is how much should we invest? So really massive question. And there's two areas that I want to explore in this, really double quick time with you today. So the first is brand versus performance, which is the slide that you see here, and we'll talk through this. And the second is cost of acquisition. How much does it actually cost you to acquire a new customer? So let's run through this, because this isn't something that many business owners have really considered in any detail. So brand versus performance. So marketing investment across all tactics, whether that's digital, whether that's a door drop, whether social media, PPC, whatever, falls into one of two camps. it's performance, or it's brand. So if we think back to the wheel, so remember the brand stuff is low down. That's the, here I am, don't forget me, I'm great, you can trust me all the time. Moving around to the performance, which is the top and right of the wheel, where someone's in that window, they want to buy, and you make sure it's from you. So the two, brand and performance, work hand in hand. A couple of examples here from the slide. You can see, obviously, McDonald's. So over on the left, that is clearly a performance advert. That is designed and will be measured against results. How many customers will redeem that coupon and buy that offer for $1.99? That's what they're measuring results against. Over on the right, there's a brand advert. Now that's, you can see, not about performance. That will be very difficult to track back results, but brand reputation is equally as important, keeping that brand front of mind all the time and demonstrating the value. Some other examples, DFS. Have you ever seen a DFS brand campaign? Probably not. I don't think their sofas are ever sold and not on a sale. Selfridges, on the flip side, it's all about brand. I mean, they do a sale once, but it's like, you know, it's not what they focus on. Brand is everything. For most businesses, and this is a question we get asked, well, what should our percentage be? For most businesses, once they're established, you might be looking at something like a 60-40 split, 60 brand, 40 performance. And what that does is it gives the pushes when you need it through peak sales periods, but there's a longevity to the brand, you're building trust, and actually the two united mean that growth can be sustained, and it's not peaks and troughs. So right now for your business, we're in a very different state. It's business as unusual. There's nothing wrong with choosing to kind of move those scales and amend that balance. And it could actually be that for the interim, you move the balance so you're actually spending a bit more on performance than you are on brand if you're investing in marketing. But keep in mind that long-term brand is vital, and you don't want to fall into the trap of just doing performance. So with brand building, think about what's your higher purpose, influence future sales, the broad reach, the long term. It's about, for a retailer, perhaps becoming a relation shop rather than building a relationship. How could you encourage involvement with the community, even in a digital sense? For B2B service providers, this might be about thought leadership and client problem solving. And then on the performance side, it's about generating sales now, tightly targeted, short-term, persuasive messages. The two are very different. And often we talk to business owners who say, oh, you know, we've tried marketing before. We did a door drop back in 2019. It didn't work. And it's like, okay, well, what was the aim? Was it a performance ad? Was it a brand ad? What was the aim? And often they've not really dug down deep enough and assessed that and decided how they're going to measure. So that's really, really important. If whatever you're spending, you want to make sure you get a return on. Okay, so cost of acquisition. So this is the ultimate question. How much should I be spending on marketing now? I'm trying to make the most of the green shoots and bounce back. So our answer is, back to you really. How much is a new customer worth to you? So not just that first transaction either, it's actually about a lifetime of transactions, and then the referral opportunities that come beyond. So it's not really the mindset of what can I afford. I think business owners have got to get out of that mindset when it comes to marketing. It's not about what can you afford, it's about what can you bring in at the other end. So I suppose my final tip in the actual webinar presentation section today will be about reverse engineering with that in mind. When you're thinking about how much you should invest in marketing now to bounce back, take a reverse engineered approach. And again, it's really brilliant for owners who tend to be attracted by shiny things, jumping to the next exciting idea. You know, you get a phone call from an advertising exec, you know, was selling a full page ad in Essex Life for this, you know, should we take it? The answer is, let's just reverse engineer things first, because it's always easy to jump about, but then the investment is never smart and you can never track it. So one final time, grab your pen with your number one product or service in mind that you're thinking about bouncing back with. Answer these questions. So how many new customers or sales do you want to achieve in the next 6 months with this product or service? Now that might be financially, that might be a financial number, that might be a number of clients, but jot down what you would think is success in the next 6 months. Once you've done that, think about how much financially these customers or these sales are worth to your business. And then think about the predicted lifetime value that they might bring. So let's say you've got a customer and you want them to buy a product. And then you kind of know that most customers who buy that product then go on, or should go on really, to buy these other products and recommend you twice. Just really quickly think about that bigger lifetime value that one customer could bring. So by answering these questions, you should arrive at kind of a rough financial goal for your 6-month bounce back marketing campaign. That's what success is going to look like for you. So now, and you can kind of do these numbers later, think on it a bit more, but now, so let's say each customer is worth £250 to your business and you want to achieve 120 new customers in the next 6 months. That's 30,000 new turnover. So then the question comes back to you again, how much are you willing to invest to win them? £25 per customer, let's say, finger in the air. So that gives you a marketing budget of £3,000 to achieve your £30,000 added turnover. They're important numbers to start thinking and start reverse engineering back, because you're not then just putting a finger in the air, how much should I invest, what can I afford? You're actually thinking, how much do I want to invest to achieve this goal? And that's a very different mindset. And then very quickly, the cherry on the top of your planning, which you can think about, reverse engineer your funnel. To achieve that target, how many customers are you going to need in at the very top of that funnel? How many customers, if you track your website traffic, you're going to need to land on that web page? How many of those are likely to convert to some kind of sales call or mid-funnel conversation? And then of that, how many are likely to actually become customers? By reverse engineering everything backwards, you start to get a sense of what you need to be achieving, and it's not finger in the air, and your bounce back marketing can be better because it's planned and you can measure it. And I hope that that's been really helpful. It's been a whistle-stop tour, reputation, customer cycle and investment. And I hope you've got lots of questions that I can help you with. So let me stop sharing my screen now and come back.
Right, I can see you, Jill. Thank you.
Hello.
Excellent. Very interesting presentation there. Thank you.
That's
And just before I carry on saying anything else, just to remind our viewers, if you've got any questions at all about the presentation or anything more broadly about marketing your business, then please do type the questions in now and I'll be happy to put them to Jill. Jill, I was interested in the point you made about the pricing. You know, some businesses are very reluctant to display their prices because they put customers off. My very first my first sort of full-time job was as a trainee shop manager many years ago, selling car spares, and I learned a lot of lessons in that job. But the most important lesson I learned from my area manager was very quckly, he said to me, anything which is not priced will not sell. He said, and we did experiments. We took prices off various stocks and monitored the sales, and the sales plummeted. Anything that wasn't sold, anything that wasn't priced, people just didn't buy it. They didn't ask the price, they just didn't buy it. Yeah. And retail is obviously a great way to learn about customer and how customers act, but the same applies to websites, it applies to business across the board, as I'm sure you'd agree that pricing is very important. Not about being necessarily whether you're competitive or not, but just actually letting your customers know what your price is. That's right, and often it's about a ballpark. And you're doing yourself a favour too. So it helps on kind of twofold. Number one, that is cost and pricing is number one, the most searched Google question ever across all industries. That's what people ask first. So it helps to give your customers what they want, you know, in that they ask, you answer, really transparent, honest kind of culture. It demonstrates that you're open and honest right from the start, but it also acts as a filter for you. So you're already filtering out the kind of customers you don't want to spend time talking to.
you know, when we're all super busy, you know, lots of businesses have furloughed staff, lots of business owners are actually running everything themselves. They haven't got junior team members filtering whether customers are worth spending time on at the start anymore. So make sure your marketing is doing that job for you, and by displaying at least ballpark costs, you are doing that, and you're naturally just filtering away the customers that are not the right fit because they don't have the right level of investment. Their expectations don't match with yours.
Yeah, so you're actually defining your target market and making it clear to your customers whether you're actually even interested in having them as a customer.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. Just coming back to the slide with the wheel about the trigger and the purchase cycle. On the message I got from you was very clearly that when people are in the passive cycle, that's when you should actually be going out and trying to attract them and because obviously that's the time to promote your brand. Are you saying that you could actually in effect fire the trigger yourself? Could you trigger them into a purchase even if they hadn't actually thought about it? Could you be the person who proactively gets the customer to think, actually I do need one of those even though I haven't thought about it?
Absolutely. And I think that was so I think that's where I'm talking about certainly with customer relationship management. If you've already got a database and you've mapped out, if it's a product, let's say, when a customer is coming back round, you own that, you know that already. So you can create a situation, let's say you sell candles online, and you know roughly how many burn cycles a candle goes through. Then in that case, your customers, you should know, most of them will need a new candle 3 months later. So let's create that trigger. Let's reach out to them, maybe through email marketing. Let's reach out and create a situation where you are saying you're coming into the window. We can send another one, and you know, or we could even develop some kind of membership system where you get an automatic discount if you are on the membership system and the new candle is coming round to you automatically. You're creating the trigger. Every business will be different. Every product and service will be different, but you need to really understand your audience, get under their skin, think about what happens to move them around, and then think about how you can engineer that to get them round to the next stage.
And could that equally apply to people who aren't actually existing customers? So people who are potential customers, could you attract them in the passive stage as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the passive stage, it's about being front of mind. So this is where, let's say, email marketing is really strong, just keeping the email coming in, seeing the headline, don't need people opening, but they need to know that you're there. It's about trust. It's just about being front of mind all the time so that businesses, customers know exactly what you're about and what you do. And actually, the proof is that if you invest low down, where it's hard to measure the return, certainly harder than it is to measure on a purchase decision, you actually make it quicker. So if they trust you already, if your reputation is strong, when customers move around and they're considering you against 1, 2, 3 competitors, you're on the consideration list, you stand more chance of being chosen, and their move from considering to purchasing is much quicker. So you speed that whole cycle up because you've built the trust. The danger for lots of businesses that's happened in the past is that they've got sucked into digital marketing, which is pay-per-click, which is perhaps paid social, all sits in that performance window and is very easy to measure. So if businesses are spending more and more and more on pay-per-click, on social click, and all they see is, oh, well, this is working, we're getting all of this business coming through. But what they're not measuring is how hard that they've had to work down here on the reputation. So they start to decrease the reputation because they think it's all about spending up here, but actually it then slows things down. It has to be a full holistic approach if you want things to work long term. Yeah.
So I guess a good example of passive marketing would be, for example, if you ran a car repair workshop, then you would actually want to be making your brand known before someone's car broke down, so that when their car did break down, they would obviously automatically think of you rather than having to go out looking for someone once their car had broken down.
Absolutely. And it's really now with that kind of example, how could you be demonstrating that you support your community? So are you giving, incredible service to NHS workers who are on a really tight time frame and have got to get their car in, get back to a shift again really quickly? Could you be doing something which is genuinely supporting and building trust and sharing that and being part of that, not in a salesy way, just because you want to and because you care? And that is all about building trust. and you're not going to be able to measure that in terms of performance, but it will be building trust, so that when you then perhaps say do a door drop within a 5-mile radius of where your garage is to general customers, they really trust you already, and it's front of mind, and they think, oh, those guys have been doing great things. You know, yes, absolutely, I do want to spend my money with them because I trust them.
Yeah, so coming back to the point you made about performance versus brand, and you were saying as a ballpark figure, 60% should be spent on brand and 40% on performance. Would that vary according to the size of the business? I'm just thinking sort of big multinational companies like McDonald's, for example, can afford to spend a huge amount on brand awareness, knowing in the long run it will lead to an increased sales. But if you're a small, maybe sort of one-man business, would you equally recommend 60% on brand and 40% on performance, or does it vary?
I mean, that's a really rough figure. That's a really rough figure. And when we work with clients and we do a marketing makeover for them, it's about deciding what's right for them. You know, oftentimes a younger business might have to focus much more heavily on performance just to get cash flow in. You know, if a business is struggling perhaps and they have a glut of stock, it might be that there's a specific campaign which is much more heavily weighted on performance, 100% performance, to move the stock, to get cash flow in, to get the business moving forward. So it's really, really tailored. The 60-40 is a general split. And I would say actually it makes no difference at all when we're talking generally, whether you're a multinational or a small business, because it is still about, for a business owner, even if they don't have any budget, if all the marketing that they do is self-generated, it's them on social media, it's them physically going to breakfast networking events, it's, you know, it's them doing all of that hard work, that should be perhaps their gauge on how they split their time, the time that they're spending. So I think it's a good gauge, and I think it's a gauge that business owners should use to make sure that they're very focused and what they're doing is designed to be a measurable result.
That's a good point, actually. You mentioned time. You talked quite a bit in your presentation about the sort of cost of marketing and everything, but obviously time is the most significant cost, isn't it, particularly for a small business. So how much time you spend on each form of marketing, definitely. Good. So the questions are beginning to come in from our viewers now. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions for Jill, then just do type them into the Q&A section of the Zoom app. We've got a question here. I'll read it out for you. Different forms of marketing have different hit ratios, e.g. mail shot versus telesales. How would you choose which medium was the best fit for your business? Okay, so a solid plan first and foremost. So understanding the audience, understanding what you want to achieve at the end, how you're going to measure the success. It's going to be different for every single campaign. So what's your product or service? What sets you apart? Which audience are you going to sell this product or service to? And where are they? What stage, you know, what are they doing in this purchase cycle? Where is this audience in the passive stage? What are they doing? How can you reach them? What's the trigger? What are they doing in the active stage, and how are they going to purchase? If you've got, you know, if it's a CRM campaign designed to talk to your existing customer base, then perhaps email marketing would be sufficient, and you could trial that and see the results you get off the back end. It needs to be bespoke. You can't just say a tactic works best. Tactics need to be developed with an end goal and an audience in mind. Great. Okay, thank you. Another question. What are the easy things which businesses could be doing now to prepare for maybe investing in bounce back marketing in a few months when they get ready to return to work in their industry?
Okay, so I would say what businesses should be doing right now is laser targeting their offering. So I think, you know, a product or a service, identifying one or two products or services that they see as giving the most opportunity as green shoots come back, because their business might have had to adapt and flex and be very different from what it was before. So nailing that, nailing the product or the service, nailing how they're different and how they can prove that they're different, understanding the audience. So which audience will be interested in this product or service and why? Which competitors will they be battling against to win the business? Do a competitor audit. So once you've decided what your product or service is, get 5 competitors who you see yourself coming up against time and time again, and do an audit of what they say they do, how they say they do it, and how they prove it. Look on their website, look on their social media channels, and help yourself really to find a gap, a story gap where you can stand out and you can do something different. Go through these 2 exercises that I've identified today. Map out the purchase cycle for this product or service and these customers, and start to jot down how you can reach them at each stage. Think about that funnel. Think about, so physically draw your funnel, big triangle, product or service and audience. If you want to achieve 10 new customers down the bottom, what does it mean here? What's this mid stage? How many phone calls will you need to have? How many free trials might you need to offer? How many downloads of an ebook might you need to achieve? And then further up, how much traffic are you going to have to pull to your website? Reverse engineer it all. Start filling in those gaps, because that will give you your answer in terms of what you should be doing. Don't try to come up with the answer and then try and make it fit. You have to go backwards.
Right, okay, so reverse engineering is definitely one of the messages you're sending out today.
Yeah.
In actual fact, you just sort of touched on a question which I was going to ask you anyway, but I'll put the question to you because you might want to expand on it. And this is about our competitors. We may be running a business where we feel there's maybe half a dozen other businesses offering exactly the same product or service. Yeah. And the question really was about how we differentiate ourselves. So you've sort of talked about doing an audit of your competitors. Is there any other ways you say you could actually amend your business to make you more different from what other companies, what your competitors are offering?
Well, certainly shift your focus. Lots of businesses, the story is very much about them. But I think if you could shift your focus so it's more geared towards your customer, I think that will differentiate you. So really spend time brainstorming the challenges that your customers will be facing and getting under the skin of their story and leading with that. I also think perhaps come up with a demonstrable proof point, a tangible thing that sets you apart. So this could be a process. You know, you could create a process, and it's probably going to be very similar, if not exactly the same as the trusted process you follow anyway, but package it. Package the process, give it a name, maybe spend, you know, a little bit of money on a logo for the process. Customers trust a process. And if they see that it is, it's a tangible asset that your business has, that will be a real standout for you. Your competitors might be following a very similar process, but if they haven't packaged it, then they can't sell it. So that's definitely something that you should perhaps look at doing.
Okay.
And also, yeah, the competitor story audit. That's a really interesting exercise, a useful exercise to go through. And I think for most businesses, it's really illuminating, because they'll find that lots of their competitors are saying exactly the same thing. And it helps them to identify black and white. It only should be A4, 2 sides, nothing major, where they're the gap and where they can stand apart.
Good. Okay, thank you. One other question, and just to remind the audience, if you've got any questions, do type them in and send them in to us as soon as possible so I can ask them of Jill. I was just thinking about, if you're in business and your business has sort of come to a bit of a grinding halt, how do you look at the potential changes in the business? So, for example, you might be working in a particular industry where people are saying, actually, this business is never going to be the same again. I mean, there's obviously a lot of talk about leisure and restaurants and all that sort of thing. How do we go about predicting how our industry will be in the future? Are there any tips on that? I know it's a bit of a sort of shot in the dark, but
I mean, you know, I think all businesses right now should be looking for those areas of opportunity that, you know, for lots of businesses certainly, and the ones you've mentioned, it's going to be about adapting and almost completely reinventing sometimes the offering. But again, it's going to come back to your customer base and those questions around what do your customers need from you right now, and almost have that brainstorm without thinking about monetizing it or anything else. Just an honest, transparent look at what your customers would need right now in your area of expertise. And once you've done that, then you could perhaps start to think, well, how can we overlay an offering that matches? Does it kind of half fit with what we're doing now? Is it completely different? I mean, that's kind of much bigger than marketing, because marketing is really designed, once you know what your product offering is, to help you take it to market and reach the audience and connect. But certainly I think that's where I would start. It would be, what does the audience need, and can we create something that's going to be of real value to them in the long term?
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to put you on the spot now, Jill, and say to you, just to sort of wrap things up, if there was one single short message you'd like to send out to our viewers today about marketing their business, what would it be?
I think you're going to know it's reverse engineering, because I've said it about a million times. But yeah, 100% reverse engineering. Don't start with the question, how much can I spend, or should I be on Instagram? Reverse engineer it. What aim do you want? What's the goal? And then work backwards from that, because all the answers will come.
So to quote Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind.
Yes, 100%.
Right. Okay, great. Well, thanks very much for that, Jill. That's a really interesting and informative presentation from you.
You're very welcome.
And if anyone's got any questions, let me just share the screen with your details. And I'm sure you'll be happy to hear from anyone who's got a question they want to ask you. There's Jill's email up on the screen there.
Lovely. Yeah, definitely. I am, and just, you know, on a final point, we are actually giving away. We started at the beginning of lockdown, giving away 5 free growth surgeries a month. And that's an opportunity for a business to get on the phone with myself and Richard and really sanity check their ideas. It's been invaluable, I think, for lots of businesses. So if you want to get in the mix for the next 5 slots, then just drop me an email at jill@attractandengage.co.uk, and we'll try and arrange something. So yeah, you're not going blind.
Right, okay. And if someone wanted a PDF of your slides from today, could I send you an email and you send them out to them?
Of course, that's no problem.
Okay, brilliant. That's great. And just to remind everyone watching today, if you'd like to see the recording again, or maybe you missed the beginning of it, then it will be uploaded to the YouTube channel, and along with all the other webinars which we've presented up till now. Just to remind you very quickly of what our next webinar is going to be, and that's on next Friday. As I say, we're running these webinars at the moment twice a week. And next Friday is a complete change of direction. It's all about keeping your office clean with someone called Tom Pryor from ST Extreme Cleaning, and he'll be joining us on Friday morning at 9:30 a.m. For a similar format, a little presentation from Tom about keeping your workplace clean, and then obviously going on to questions and answers from yourself. Incidentally, if any of you are specialists in a particular field which you think would be of interest to our viewers, then do contact me, because I'm always looking for new subjects and new ideas to focus on in these webinars. Or similarly, if you know someone who you think would be very good at presenting a webinar, then please do feel free to contact me. Just one other plug for our viewers today. That's an extra webinar which Brentwood Chamber of Commerce are running on Thursday afternoon. We're meeting our MP, Alex Burghardt, the MP for Brentwood and Ongar, will be joining us at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon to answer any questions which you have for him, or indeed for the government, regarding the handling of the coronavirus crisis. So if you'd like to join us, the details are on the Chamber of Commerce website. And more importantly, if you've got a question which you'd like to ask Alex, then put it to me, webinar@brentwoodchamber.co.uk, and I'll happily answer the questions on your behalf. And so please do book, because there are limited places available. Full details on the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce website. So all that remains for me really is to thank you all very much for joining us today. Obviously, without you watching the presentation would be pointless. So thank you for joining us today. And most importantly of all, thank you, Jill, for your excellent presentation. And I look forward to seeing you all again on Thursday afternoon with Alex, and again on Friday morning. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.